Hi, my name is Chase Reber. This is for Old Testament class 501. This is my creative project on the scroll book, the book of Ecclesiastes. And what I've done is I wrote a song based on this book. Before I get to that part, I just kind of want to set the stage, kind of give a little bit of background, kind of walk through a little bit of the book, and then I'll end with the song part for today. So thank you for listening. In this folder, you're also going to find a very brief outline, the lyrics to the song, and then my bibliography, so you can follow along with what's going on there as well. So I really enjoyed doing this and getting to know this book a little bit more. I've learned a lot, and I think it was really good for me. I enjoyed it. So let's kind of start at the beginning. Who wrote the book? Let's kind of go there. On short, we don't exactly know who. We don't know the exact author's name. We're going to say that's an unknown author. There's many people that like to believe it to be Solomon, but the evidence doesn't really line up that well to point everything towards him. So what I like is how Longman and Diller kind of put in our textbook, how they kind of explain it as there's two voices being heard. There's one they called the second wise man, and then one that is referring to himself in the book often as the Kohelet. And I'm going to call him, that word means either assembler or teacher or preacher. In my Bible here, it refers to it as the teacher. So I'm just going to use that so I don't keep messing up that word, Kohelet. Well, it's kind of a pseudonym or nickname, meaning that. And basically what we see is there's the second wise man. It seems to be he's the author. We're going to refer to him as the author. And this book is written in a way that genre-wise, it's as our textbook puts it, a framed autobiography. I want to make sure I say that right. A framed autobiography. And so as we look through how it's structured, I think it helps us understand what that looks like and why they call it that way. So it's kind of broken into three parts. Like I said, it's a framed autobiography, dated most likely in the late in the history of Israel, and the late post-exile period, kind of in the later part of that is what we would kind of go with there and what it kind of looks like. And it's broken down into three parts. We got the prologue, the main body, or the main monologue, which is the main portion of this book, and then the epilogue. And how it's broken apart is that second wise man, who we're going to look to as like the author or the narrator. He begins in the prologue referring to that teacher or that Kohelet, in speaking in third person about that in the prologue and the epilogue. So he'll set the stage, then he'll let the teacher speak in first person in that main body section, and then he's going to come in at the end and kind of wrap it all up. And so we look at the first part, the prologue, and we see it's written in third person, introducing us to this teacher and what this teacher is about to tell us. And he gives us the very beginning of this, all is vanity. This word vanity, the Hebrew word is hevel. Hopefully I say that right. It's used over 50 times in this book, which I thought was really interesting. I thought that was a really unique thing. It's basically, this is the first time we get introduced to it, and Eaton says in his commentary, it's to no effect. Is what it means. Unsubstantial, unknowable, mysterious, absurd. Literally, it means breath or vapor, referring to the emptiness of life. And I just wrote down this quote, and I thought it was good from Johnson in his commentary. I want to make sure I say this right, the Layman Bible book commentary. So Johnson says this in there. It says, all of the things, referring to this vapor, referring to this word vanity, it's all the things people count as purpose to give permanence and substance to human existence are no more than a vapor rising in the morning air and disappearing before the sun. I just thought that was an interesting way to put it. And basically, so he sets the stage to show us that this is what this book is going to be about. So it's just a few verses of him setting up, this is what the teacher says, all is vanity, all is vanity. And then we get into the main body, the monologue. And this is where the teacher is speaking in first person, and he basically, to summarize this entire section, this is the main portion, the most of the book is this part of it, and it's basically everything under the sun is vanity, meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Now the phrase under the sun I think is important to get here, and I think it's a really cool piece once we understand it. And Eaton, in his commentary, kind of calls it life without reference to God. So he's saying everything under the sun, or everything in life without reference to God. So life without God is meaningless, is vanity. Not life in general, just life without God. When you live life without a reference to God, or an awe of God, or respect for God, or acknowledgement of God's presence, it is meaningless. Life is but a chasing after the wind. And then he goes to just list all those things, seeking after fortune, or things, or women, or wisdom. All of it is vain. All of it is in vain and vanity. Everything is meaningless. It says, from dust we come and to dust we go, whether the righteous or unrighteous, death is inevitable for us all, and we're all going to the same place. It's one thing we can't outrun, we can't do anything about. Death is coming for all of us, and so from dust you come, to dust you go. And so he kind of there's some cool parts in there that there's a time for everything. So basically, eat, drink, have relationship, love, and work, for life is meaningless. And it's kind of this strange main section of scripture where we're like, this is really not awesome. It's kind of pessimistic, maybe, like what kind of outlook is this? But I think if you just read into it that way, you're missing it, that there's a great point to be wrapped up in the end. And even at the end of this main body of this monologue, you see towards the end of chapter 8 and 9, this acknowledgement of that basically God gives us these gifts, gives us the ability for food and drink and love and relationships and work. Like, it's a gift from God. It comes from God. And then he also shows in chapter 8, verse 12, kind of this idea that it's going to go well with those who fear God and not so well with those who don't fear God. So as he begins to say everything under the sun, everything in life without reference or without regards to God is meaningless, he starts to kind of slowly lead us into this idea that when you fear God, that's when life goes well with you, and that God is real because everything comes from him. And so it's kind of starts to begin to introduce this idea that I'm saying life without God is meaningless, but I want to show you that there's a point to this. There's a wrap-up here. And so at the end, the epilogue, the last few verses here, we get that second wise man coming back, that author or narrator coming back in and summarizing everything for us. He's going to come and he's going to say, at the end of it all, okay, at the end of all of this, here's what's important in life. Here it is. Fear God and keep his commandments. As Longman puts in our textbook, it says he refers to this as, this is the gospel in a nutshell, to fear God and keep his commandments. And so that's kind of how the book ends. It's the prologue, the monologue, and it ends in that epilogue where he kind of wraps it all up and says, after everything you just heard, after everything is said, here's what it's all about. Fear God and keep his commandments. So as we look to how do we apply that to our life, the contemporary application of that, life apart from God is, in fact, vanity. I mean, I think that's a timeless truth that we need to understand, that life without regards to God, without respect to God, there is no meaning, there is no purpose. It is vanity. It is emptiness. It is a chasing after the wind. And I believe we're called the same today as it is the gospel in a nutshell, to fear God and keep his commands, to keep his ways. That's what we're called to still today. That's still our calling. That's still what God would have us to do. And that's still the end of it all. If we could summarize life, that's what it's all about. For every one of us, it's the same, to fear God and keep his commands. And the purpose, hope, meaning, life after death, it's all found in the person, in the relationship of Jesus Christ. And so as we look towards how does this book, how do we fit this into our life? I think it's really simple. We can look at all that and say, you know what? It's still true today. Life is meaningless without God. But the cool thing is God does exist. Everything we get is a gift from God. Life, relationships, work, food, drink, it's all from God. And we need to acknowledge that and have a respect and a regard and a fear and honor and awe of God. And that will lead to a life that goes well with us. And at the end of it all, our life summary needs to be, you know what, how, as we live life, as we do relationships, as we work hard at what we do, we need to remember that it's a gift from God. And as we do those things, we need to fear God and keep his commands along the way. So based on basically all of that, on this book of Ecclesiastes, I put together this song that I guess I titled Fear God and Keep his Ways. And I hope it's worthy, and it's a creative project, and this is what I have to bring to the table. So thanks for listening so far. Here's the song. all is vanity, a chasing wind, and life comes from the dust, and that is where it ends. You could have it all, things and fame, or you could be without, it's just the same. And when it all is said and done, and there's nothing under the sun, there is nothing left to say. Fear God and keep His ways. All of life comes down to this. For every one of us it is all we ever need to say. Fear God and keep His ways. Fear God and keep His ways. For everything there is a time to be born and a time to die. And yet I know that it will be well for those who fear God. Only time will tell. And when it all is said and done, and there's nothing under the sun, there is nothing left to say. Fear God and keep His ways. All of life comes down to this. For every one of us it is all we ever need to say. Fear God and keep His ways. Oh, fear God and keep His ways. So eat your food and drink your wine. Love your spouse while there's still time. And work hard at what you do. Just remember it's a gift to you. When it all is said and done, and there's nothing under the sun, there is nothing left to say. Fear God and keep His ways. All of life comes down to this. For every one of us it is all we ever need to say. Fear God and keep His ways. Oh, fear God and keep His ways. Fear God and keep His ways. Well, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I appreciate the opportunity to dig into this book. That's my project, creative project on Ecclesiastes. Thank you.